I love there's a cartoon. It's two people riding on a bus, and one person's looking out the right side, and it's sunshine and beautiful, and he's smiling, and one person's on the same bus looking out the other side of the window, and it's rainy and it's gloomy, and it's like we can be on the same ride, experiencing the exact same thing, and your perspective is so negative. And don't get me wrong, all the things that you talked about are horrible, but I believe that we were given this free will in order to create like God creates. So why not look at the things that we have now and utilize the tools that we have in order to create a better world? And that's where that prayer is so powerful in my life of like, his kingdom come, his will be done, means it's not done yet. It means that we have work to do. And so these gifts that we've been given, like technology, like these tools, let's utilize them to the best of our ability, and let's use our discernment and our listening and our community. We can pass information to the other side of the world, and we can use our discernment to understand, like, is this really something that has weight and has substance, and that we can actually start to kind of create this what is true north? Having these discussions, I think, are more happening now than they ever have.
Hi, I'm Patrick DePeters, and I'm your host of Quiet Leaders. I'm here today with Kyle Cassidy, an entrepreneur based here in Los Angeles. He's someone that has started not just a company, but really a movement and a community built around ice baths. I was able to experience just how wonderful the product and service that he and his team deliver, but also, as he says, he holds space for people to connect and to take care of themselves and to take care of each other. And so we're here today to get to chat with him about what that journey was like, building a new business from nothing and during the pandemic. So thanks so much for joining us. And without further ado, Kyle Cassidy. Tell us about, where you come from, what your upbringing was like.
Yeah, very, very blessed upbringing with two parents that are still together to this day. I think that's the best gift that you can be given, is loving parents. So big shout out Mama Chris and Papa Tim. I am the third born. I have two older sisters than myself, two younger sisters and a younger brother. So big family. It was rambunctious growing up, but it taught me a lot about kind of the importance of play and the importance of, being mischievous enough to the point where you don't get in too much trouble. But I just remember the growing up in that type of a family, there was never a dull moment. You always had to, be quick on your feet. Being in a household of 5 women, it taught me a lot about, observing and creating space, but also like being loud and being just a part of this energy that I think has taught me so much about holding space. And so I have a huge family, and every time we come together, it's such a blessing, and it's something that I now have the honor of being able to create with my wife. We're having a kid in August, and
amazing. Congrats.
A lot of prayers answered in that regard, but just at the center of community, I learned it in my family. And so to come up in that type of an environment and to see how blessed I was to be able to always have people to lean on and people to feel support from and people to be mentored by. When I was going down a path that wasn't the right path, I would be pulled back towards a path that was for me. And so stepping out into the world, I was able to see that a lot of people were coming from broken families. A lot of people had a lot of hurt and trauma from that. So it almost, from a young age, I was able to kind of be that house that people could come to and have breakfast made by my mom in the morning, and my dad say, hey, let's all go to the park and play basketball. And just like this aspect of what I believe family is like, when I saw my dad, I saw him sacrifice a lot. A lot of the things that maybe he desired, he put on the back burner in order to provide for me and my family and provide for my friends, and always put us first. And then to see my mom kind of, usher in this kind of nurturing, always looking out for us and always showing us that they had a safe place to come. San Diego wasn't a rough place, but there was a lot of diversions from the path. And so, like we spoke of, when you're young, you start to kind of think that you can do things your way. And I started to kind of move in this path of glorifying my own kind of pride and the things that I wanted. And I felt this yearning to create a deeper relationship with something that was true. And I felt this overwhelming presence of God coming into my life and showing me that there was a path that I could take towards serving others. When I was young, went to a performing arts school out of high school. Wanted to kind of fit in, and all of my friends were going like the college route, and I went to Palomar, which is a an extension of school, but not something that felt organic to me. I didn't feel like I fit in, and I felt as though it was forced. Community college is one of those things where you're showing up. Do I want to be here? I was studying psychology, and it was something that I enjoyed, but I really was looking for passion. And so the performing arts school was really fun because I learned a lot around holding space, around energetic, around improvisation, around being around people who loved what they did. And then as I started to get into that field, I realized like it was too much of a performance. I felt like there was a bit of a fakeness to it that didn't resonate with me a ton. And I was in San Diego at the time, and a friend of mine was brewing beer with Ballast Point. Started brewing beer with Ballast Point, and that was so fun because of the camaraderie and because of the hospitality and the service aspect of things. I was 21 years old looking for that type of energy. I played sports my whole life, so if I'm around that type of energy, I thrive off enthusiasm. And kind of rose up the ranks pretty quickly. I was managing the tasting kitchen, and I was helping manage the brew house, and I was doing a lot of managerial tasks at a very young age. And I was managing a lot of people who were older than me. And when you're in that type of a role, people look at you like, who are you to be younger than me telling me what to do? So instead of telling people what to do, I would just do the thing. And through the doing of the thing, people would gravitate towards that, and they'd kind of follow suit. So I learned at an early age, it's not so much about barking orders as it is about doing the thing that you want people to be doing. And doing that for a few years, I enjoyed the camaraderie, I enjoyed the leadership, I enjoyed kind of making my mark felt and my presence felt, but I felt as though I was deterring people from a path. Beer is a great thing that brings people together. For thousands of years it's been doing that, but as you know, it can be a bit of a distraction from what I think is more on the alignment towards your purpose and your health. In that time, I found a yoga studio, shout out Yoga Loft in San Diego, and teacher there, Olga Roberts. It was a big shift for me because I met somebody who was present with the person that was right in front of them. Most of the coaches that I knew growing up playing sports, it was next man up. She was so present and focused on, why are you here? What are you looking to create through this practice? She saw my practice. Long story short, she was like, your practice is beautiful, but I can tell there's something internally that you are battling. And you have this competitive drive to be better than those around you. And your yoga practice isn't about those around you. It's about going deeply inside yourself and competing with that ego that you need to not dissolve, but to understand. And so the teacher training really opened my eyes to spirituality and creating a relationship with God rather than a connection to this physical place like a church, which was like a big time shift for me, having grown up in a family that was Christian, never really having that deep relationship with God. That was the moment when I really felt the presence of God. And I was able to feel, okay, now my life is shifting towards, I want to be of service towards other people's journey towards knowing God, knowing themselves, and living a life that is healthy. Like, to me, I started to break down definitions of words and what does healthy mean? And I started to fall into love with my own health journey and then sharing that with people. So in 2015, I was certified to become a yoga teacher, started teaching yoga a lot. I was probably teaching 15, 20 classes a week and just fell in love with the aspect of holding space. And I learned from Olga, it's so powerful to be able to invite people into a sacred space and guide them on this journey of self-exploration and then eventually holding space for them to find that relationship with God.
Wow.
That's wonderful. I loved the aspect of sports. I always loved being in shape. Big shout out to my dad for always like pushing me in the gym and holding space for me in that regard to kind of fail, but then know that failure is actually when you can grow stronger. So I got my personal training certification in 2019, and this was right before the pandemic. So I was kind of pairing physical fitness and yogic philosophy to create like this resiliency, mind, body, and spirit through yoga, fitness, and faith. And then COVID hit. And COVID was this interesting time of needing to pull back. Perseverance was really the word that came through for me in that time. It was the first time in my life I had felt really like afraid. And in that time, I felt God's presence again very heavily of like, I need you to create what you wish existed. In that, I felt this tremendous need for community. I felt like community was taken from us. Me and some friends started to create opportunities for people to gather. We were doing cold plunges at the beach. We were doing workouts. We were doing Bible studies. We were doing potlucks, anything and everything to just bring people together and showcase that family unit that I so willingly accepted as a child, and then started to step into the world and see was missing. It like was a glaring need. And I came from experience of knowing what that felt like. So I was able to share that with people, and I saw people gravitate towards it, and they were starting to ask questions of like, how can I create this more? And so it was a beautiful moment to be able to see that, you know, anything that you want in this world, you can create it. But a lot of times creating it alone is difficult, and it's lonely. And so to be able to pray for the things that you need, and then those things show up in your life, but they're not just like a gift basket. You have to like take action towards actualizing those things and then seeing them bear more fruit. It led to everything that we see today. Like nothing happens overnight. So those things were just continually showing up without wanting anything. Like the intention was really to just hold space and to create the connections that I so desperately was praying for. I was needing brotherhood. God gave me more brothers than I knew what to do with. I was craving a deep relationship that was more than just the physical. God gave me my wife. And then from that, you have to be kind of the steward of it. So it's been fun to see. The last 4 years truly has been like a real explosion of community, a real opportunity for me to step into leadership and to see the fruits of my labor. But it's not all rainbows and butterflies, man. It's not easy. There's days where it's hard to get out of bed, and that's why I feel like community is so important, is because when I need shoulders to lean on, I have people that I can depend on. And we're new in the friendship, but I can tell there's a deep brotherhood here that's going to grow, and it's going to be cool to create more opportunities for people to feel what it feels like to be in a family.
You're right. The world needs it. We like our community. Like, let's just start with our community. Like right here in, you know, west side of LA, and eventually, I'm sure there are more plans to pop open these collaborations you do with these yoga studios and gyms and other organizations across the city. That, you know, there's no telling how many lives that can impact.
Totally.
So when you were you have a co-founder, yeah?
Yeah. So actually, founder Ariane came to a healthy morning that we were hosting in January of 2023. Two of my roommates at the time, we were hosting healthy mornings at our house. And the goal with the healthy house was to create, we were on 7,500 square feet. We were paying a lot of rent, but the goal was to create this like sanctuary space. And those healthy mornings were in January, 31 straight days of breath work, meditation, movement, and cold plunging.
Wow.
And Ariane Devani came to one of those mornings desperately searching for community, searching for some consistency in his practice. And when he came to that morning, he was like, he told me later that it changed his life. He kind of went away to try to find what we offered in Los Angeles, and most of the spaces, it's more of a spa experience. It's lacking that community piece.
Yep.
And he approached me with the business idea. He's 10,000 foot view. He's 20 years in the startup realm, and he's kind of helped me a lot to see that not always does business need to be allocated with like sneakiness, or I grew up in the, you know, when the church was kind of sneaky about where the tithing's going.
Oh, of course,
I think money's bad. And he's helping me to see that service is a beautiful thing, but business helps you to exponentially grow your service.
Totally.
So he and I believe God brought together for a very divine reason. I'm helping him see a lot of the aspects of not everything needs to be about business. He's helping me see that we need to be transparent about how the business is going to help us to grow. So it's, I'm his co-founder, but we work very well together in regards to him being the 10,000 foot view, me being boots on the ground, and how can we continually meet in the middle and build towards kind of a big vision.
Love that. Yeah, you need both, and you know, I think the word startup, I actually think is, you know, it's got kind of co-opted in a way by the Silicon Valley version of it, but I think small business is like, it's been around for as long as commerce has been around, and having a partnership that you have complementary partners to, you know, he plays his role as the visionary, and you're a visionary in your own right, but it's a different segment of the business. I think that's it's rare, and I think it's actually the key ingredient to making these things work. And he's right, and you're right, that like you need the business to basically stand on its own 2 feet, because eventually then the mission dies. And unfortunately, I had that experience actually in my last company, where the mission in some ways came first, and the business was very, very challenging. And so did a lot of thinking about that kind of dynamic where you are allowed to make money because money is just an exchange of energy in a way.
Without doubt.
Right? It's like a store of energy. And so if you're doing good things, helping a lot more people, I think making money is certainly something that allows you to do more of that, which is awesome.
It's been fun to see it too. Today we're celebrating our year anniversary.
Today.
I
should have brought a bottle of champagne. That's terrific. Seriously, that's really fantastic.
It's incredible, man. And to see this last year, how much we've grown as brothers, like as business partners, we butt heads all the time. But it's actually something that we invite. It's like, he knows he's CEO, he needs to lead. And then there's certain times where I lead, and we go back and forth between like having our own vision and then collectively bringing it back to the vision of IcePass. And constructive debate. I think a lot of people shy away from butting heads, and that you look at like divorce rates and things of that nature and co-founder breakups and all this stuff. It's like people look at a disagreement as the end of the world, and it's the worst thing that can happen. And how dare you question me and my authority? It's like, actually, we invite that.
Totally.
And there's a way of, never going to sleep with the fight still at bay. So that's what I've been very grateful for, is that aspect of brotherhood, and what we've learned so much about, having the same vision and the same mission, and how certain things can come up and certain pivots can happen, but always coming back together towards the kind of the ethos of why it began in the first place.
Yeah, look, the that idea of having kind of like a healthy debate. There's a way to debate and challenge each other respectfully.
Yeah,
that makes the project, the mission, the operation better off, right? Like I 100% agree with you that if everyone is in the room basically nodding their heads. I studied this in college, for example, groupthink, and groupthink sometimes can happen because there's a hierarchy, but sometimes it can happen just because no one wants to speak up and say the thing that maybe needs to be said. And there's have you heard of the coach Jerry Colonna? Wrote that book Reboot. He was a venture capitalist turned now coach, executive coach, but kind of holistic life coach too. And he offers, for people that have a kind of, let's say, resentment that's built up in a partnership, he encourages them to answer these 3 questions. What are you not saying that needs to be said? What are others saying that you're not hearing? And what are you saying that others aren't hearing? And those 3, I think, can unlock a lot of partnership issues.
Big time.
Because there's a guy, Jordan Peterson, I think, says, like, if I get in an argument with my wife, like, we're gonna get to the bottom of whatever that is, because then it can get resolved. And I think a lot of people just, brush it under the rug, and then that doesn't help anyone.
The importance of boundaries and listening in those 2 aspects. And then different people have different ways of getting to the bottom of it. Sometimes, like for me, I want to get to the bottom of it right away. My wife, for instance, she needs space, right? And so to be able to like meet in the middle and to communicate effectively and to listen to the other person via body language, via words. And so it's a lot of negotiating. Partnership is so much about negotiating and about swallowing your pride, letting go of these triggers that we can have that will make us want to defend ourselves, or our ego will take a hit, and it's like, I need to be right. And so it's been a cool part of my maturation, is understanding that I don't always have to be right, and that there's certain times when I am wrong.
And it's okay to say you're wrong, and to as men, I think we sort of get conditioned to thinking that vulnerability, which is pretty much synonymous with admitting you're wrong in a way,
yes,
is something that should never really happen, because then you're weak. And I actually think that's, like, Brene Brown talks about vulnerability being kind of a superpower. Same thing is like when you're talking about the relational kind of dynamics. Like I think emotional intelligence is as valuable, if not more valuable, than IQ.
I would agree.
I really do, because like relationships matter an awful lot no matter what you want to do. As you said, you can kind of try to go do whatever you want to do by yourself, but I've tried that at different times in my life, and it doesn't, eventually it doesn't, you burn out.
Yeah.
You need other people.
Without question.
So match made in heaven, aside from the other match made in heaven behind you. And so you guys start building the business now. This is spring of 2020?
Yep.
So what
we started building business spring of 2023. the ethos of community creation and kind of what I call myself like a community architect kind of began in 2020 of just this inherent desire to hold space. But Ariane and I met January of 2023. Business model was pitched to me in March. We met David Paradiso. Ariane pitched this idea of what IcePass is, and we started April 6th of 2023
At Paradiso.
at David Paradiso's gym in Venice. Big shout out.
Yeah.
DP.
David. He's
Love
he's
you,
coming.
bro.
I love David. I work with him one-on-one.
He's incredible,
great.
man. And talk about a community architect. This man has been boots on the ground for 13 plus years, just like doing the work. Like you said, all the behind the scenes stuff. Everybody wants to be the man until you need to break down, until you need to set up, until you need to talk to somebody behind the scenes about the things that they're not embodying. It's like the little things that nobody sees. The 90% of leadership is all the things that happen in between that 10% of like, look at me, look at what I've created.
Yeah, I actually want to be doing a lot of talking, well, maybe not talking, conversing, and also writing and maybe speaking about the behind the scenes stuff. Because like my last startup, truth be told, I thought I was going to build $1 billion pet food company. That was the reality. But it was mission driven. But I was like, I can do that. And started with a team of 18 at the beginning of the pandemic. And when all was said and done, it was just me.
Wow.
And I was like, I got to clean up after the party, and I have to pay off $60,000 of credit card bills that the company has that I guaranteed. Those things don't make it to TechCrunch, but
No.
it sucked a lot. But that's part of the gig.
Yep.
And what really helped me, actually, I'm not sure if you've come across this podcast called Founders.
Yeah.
David Senra.
Fantastic.
Shout out to you, David Senra. That podcast is probably the best one that I know of or I've listened to, and I'm a huge fan of it. Because for an entrepreneur to hear that every other entrepreneur also went through the ringer, in many cases, several times in a row before they had anything close to even putting a point on the board.
Yep.
And everyone said no for the longest time and called them crazy and all these things. When you find that that's the norm and not the exception, it's very comforting.
Right.
Because even though I had been an entrepreneur for 6 years or so at that time, that business burnt me out so bad. I was like, I don't know, like, do I have what it takes to do this? So I had to have my own kind of like rise from the ashes thing, and that podcast really helped me.
Yeah. Yeah, there's no days off as an entrepreneur, so you have to really start to find those your own kind of priorities and boundaries and learn to delegate. A mentor of mine says delegate or die. If you don't learn how to put stuff from and for me, that's tough. Like I'll carry the load because I know I'm going to do it best.
Yeah.
But actually building the systems to be able to delegate and trust your team to do it better than you can do it is where we're at now. And I feel super blessed to be in this part of my leadership journey to where I want to create more leaders. And I want to take my hands off the wheel and trust that people can maybe go off into the bumpy road and kind of learn how to swim. And that drowning aspect is actually going to teach them how to swim, and then always being there to support. But your systems are tested in startup realm.
Yeah. And you've got a baby some months away, 3-4 months away. And I don't have kids yet, but I know a lot of parents say it's this weird thing where you know your kid may well stub their foot or bang up their knee or whatever, and you can stop them, but really sometimes the better thing to do is let them stub their toe.
Yep.
Because like I've stubbed my toe like a ton of times, and each of those times I've learned, well, apparently not how to stub my toe, but that stubbing your toe is actually one way to get a stronger toe. At a minimum, you get better. You can realize that when you do stub your toe, it's not the end of the world and you'll be fine in 5 minutes type thing.
Definitely. And this last year has taught me so much around, embodiment leads towards other people kind of coming towards you that you need help. Like you need to kind of create the need through your doing. You won't know what you need unless you are doing all 5 hats. And then you realize what you're best at. You're like, oh, I gravitate naturally towards this thing because these are my inherent gifts. All of us have aptitudes. So to understand why you're doing all things, because the business needs to stay afloat, these things need to get done. You have an aversion to certain things, in which case I need help in this regard. So you start to kind of put it out there, and that's to me what prayer is all about. Like, God, I need help. These areas I'm having a lot of trouble with. I need some people to come into my life, or I need some circumstances to kind of shift, and things will start to happen. And if you're aware of it, you take the blinders off of like, I'm drowning, nothing is going for me, and you start to get into that pessimistic viewpoint.
Yep.
I look at perspective of just like, I get to do these things. I know I'm capable of doing these things. Give me more to do. Somebody's going to come into my gravitational pull that kind of help towards that delegation.
Love that. Yeah, I've had honestly, this project, and the coaching company first, and then the Quiet Leaders thing came second. And they kind of are working in parallel, because they're I would say synergistic in every respect. But I found that the more aligned I am, the more that kind of thing has been happening to a really insane degree. To the point where I come home sometimes and like tell my wife, I was like, I'm living my dream. Like I wrote this down 15 years ago.
Hallelujah.
That this is the thing that I wanted to do, and like I wrote my parents a letter 15 years ago when I was at Wall Street, and the things I wrote at the end of that letter are my life now. It's crazy.
Nothing happens by chance, though. 15 years of one brick at a time.
Yeah.
You build the temple one brick at a time. And so just to continue to celebrate where you are while looking and celebrating where you've come from, and also having, like you said, the vision to know I've come this far because I'm going there. And like just these cycles, these chapters as they unfold, it's really beautiful to see that you've just stayed the course and trusted that process as it's unfolded.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And same with you. I mean, it's evident to me that you have the same ethos, which is why like the Latitude is a name that comes from longitude, latitude, my love of the outdoors and adventure, but also like orienting yourself on like a globe or a map. That's part of it. And then the compass is one way that if you always have a compass in your pocket, so to speak, and you know true north, then you don't need to know all the details about every part of the trail. Right? Like if you just know the true north part, then the trail will unveil itself.
I mean, that's a deep conversation around what is true north. And this is, I mean, I have a podcast called The Fearless Shepherds. Talking about true north is one of my favorite conversations.
Love that.
Because it's powerful.
You'll love this, and I'll show it to you after if you don't believe me. The first landing page I had up for this company, the Latitude, says Finding True North. And it's a guy, it's a picture of a backpacker with his dog looking out into like a foggy landscape, like with rocks and, like not really mountains, but it's a kind of bit of a moody picture.
That's beautiful.
And that's, I bought a bunch of domains around that because I want to write a book about something along those lines.
Look forward to reading that book.
Yeah. But so what does it mean to you though? Like what does your true north mean?
This is where I get into the spiritual conversation of inherently, I believe we were all given a spirit as a gift, and that is our discernment. And the more that we listen and follow that discernment, the more that true north will be gifted to us. I believe it is an inherent gift that we can live in God's will, not ours. And any time in my own life that I have started to think that I am the driver, I drive myself off a cliff.
I had the exact same experience. The more I try to hold on to control, the more likely I am to, as you said, drive off the cliff. I stopped, like one of my great coaches, she's going to be on, her name is Jamie. She's just so wonderful. And she helped me, with my psychedelic experiences and other things. And that was extremely meaningful. But at some point when I was trying to rebuild myself and come up with the new project that became Latitude, she was like, you have to stop thinking that it has to be hard.
Right.
You have to stop holding on to control, because I'm, maybe a control freak at some level. Or I take a lot of, like responsibility for a thing I want. I'm like it manifests itself as some kind of control, but in a lot of ways it's just ambition mixed with like impatience or something. I don't know.
Right.
But in any case, I stopped like being kind of like, overly kind of like tight on my grip, let's say. And everything started falling into place like in a pretty crazy way. So she was dead right.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's allowing God in, or allowing this divine intervention to happen. And I think when your blinders are on and you're gripping the wheel and you're not allowing any type of path to present itself that is for you, but also for those around you. It's like, I think so much of the world's problems is so selfishly motivated, like the victim mentality of like, my life is this way because of me or because of the things that have happened to me. It's me focus. Whereas when I externalize and I look at the people around me, I start to see God in every single person around me. I start to see this kind of this unfolding of things happening for me. whether it's trial and struggle or triumph and great success. All these things are happening for something far greater than me. So I continually, and this dives into the holding space, and like every time I put an event together, the inner dialogue of like, am I going to be liked? Is this going to be enough? Is it going to be a success? Those things come forward every single time. But then the thing happens, and I'm able to see all the people that we're impacting, and I see their experience, and I'm able to get out of my own way. It's so divine. Things just start to unfold, and that to me is the true north of like, how can I be this my mentor calls it servant kingship. Like, you serve first and the abundance follows. And I think business has taught me so much about that, of like, as long as I'm doing the service and I'm keeping the service at the forefront of our ethos, the abundance, it's our birthright. I think we're all meant to have more than we know we're worthy of, because inherently I think we're always the worst critic internally. I'm not enough. I'm not smart enough, fast enough, strong enough, good enough. All these things internalize, and as you believe those things, and we can talk about the science about, neuroplasticity and they're starting to do studies on how contrast therapy can help you rewire that fear mechanism, and doing the uncomfortable thing over and over and over and over again helps you to build new neural pathways to trust that actually when I get into the cold tub, when I host the event, when I put myself out there, it's not that the nets appear, my wings appear. I showcase how strong I actually am and how strong each of us are when we come together and do the thing that's never been done before. And I think we're stepping into a renaissance of people believing wholeheartedly that they are capable of doing the thing that's never been done before. Or you don't need to recreate the wheel. Ask somebody for help. Go to the person that's doing the thing that you're doing and like, how can we do this together? How can we recreate the thing, or maybe just have the thing that has great success and make it in our own way with our own gifts? It's like a really beautiful time to be alive.
I couldn't agree more. There was a time maybe 4 or 5 months ago, I was feeling a little bit pessimistic about the world. And then I watched a documentary on YouTube by a channel called Big Think. And it was literally called like All the Reasons We're Not Fucked or something like that. But it was more serious of a talk than that made it sound. And just public intellectuals talking about the time we're in now.
Yep.
And it'll take me probably too long to explain the whole thing, but I left that sort of viewing experience over the holidays this past Christmas feeling like, the vice and virtue have always existed, good and evil. The tension between those two forces has always existed, and it will always exist, but the arc is up and to the right.
Yep.
So like we're going to have World War II, and like we're going to get challenged, and there's going to be the evil and all that stuff, and we're going to have a really unfortunate global conflict that is regrettable and all these things. But if enough people, hopefully like quiet leaders, come in and say like, you know what, instead of just like kind of going like this, when commenting, let's say at dinner with friends about all the things that are messed up, maybe we can do some small thing. Maybe you can get an ice bath going with a few friends and like, look at you now, right? It's like, look at me now. Like this as I said, this project is not about me. It's really not. I'm not even thinking about the business model. Eventually I have to, but but it's like, it's just being called out of me in a way.
Yes.
And it makes it really fun. So it's like, this is fun to me. This is like,
I get to it. And I think COVID sparked this.
I just love it. And it's so great for, our world needs that kind of connection, the storytelling, the humanity, the wisdom from people that, you're talking from a level of consciousness that is taking you some time to get there, right?
Yep.
For sure. And so I think it's so important to like help extend a hand to everyone else to kind of experience maybe some small version of what got you to where you are, which is like ice bath.
Yep.
Ice baths or saunas or bonfires. You guys do these community events down at Paradiso and other places. And that may well be enough so that someone has a slightly better day that allows them to have a little bit more energy to maybe put that business plan into buying a domain or whatever.
Yes, the ripple effect.
And I totally agree with you, by the way. One reason why I think it's really awesome being a coach right now, and certainly a coach that's focused on supporting entrepreneurs, is that I think it's never been a better time to be an entrepreneur.
No question.
It's like you can do so much now with all these tools, the wisdom that people are willing to share publicly for free is enormous. And I think entrepreneurship is a vehicle for self-discovery, in my opinion, because the tension of it all makes you figure out who you are. And if you're willing to kind of like do something, maybe fail or succeed, and then check in with yourself as to like what's next, which we've all gone through that, and that you go a little bit closer to true north after that, like entrepreneurship is a freaking good way to do that.
Yes, and entrepreneurship teaches you how to fail gracefully. And even if you fall flat on your face, you realize, did you die?
Yeah.
You're okay. And I think the fear of failure prevents so many people from starting the thing. But COVID, in my opinion, yes, it was a tragedy in so many ways, but it was also a blessing. It forced a lot of people into a place of solitude that I think spirit can kind of enter. And so people came out of it with just this understanding that we're not going to be here forever. Things can be taken from us. Things can our control that we think we have can be stripped from us very easily. So I think it sparked this courageousness of this, like what we see right now in West LA is fantastic in regards to the health and wellness and tech and entrepreneurship. It's a special place. Being from San Diego, I always thought that's where I'd plant roots. My wife is from LA and never really thought I'd plant roots in LA, but really I'm able to walk down Rose. I live on Rose, and I run into people every single day that I like genuinely care about. And so this aspect of community, to be in a village type atmosphere, is such a blessing, and it sparks more enthusiasm. It sparks more ideas. There's more gathering places where we can start to feel heard, seen, understood. And you can start to see other people taking these big leaps, which, again, thriving off enthusiasm. You see somebody taking courageous leaps, you're like empowered to do that yourself. And then it just creates this huge ripple effect that hopefully we can start seeing in the Valley, East LA. You start seeing it in South Bay. And then all of a sudden we've got this like bigger ecosystem. And then all of a sudden you're like, okay, let's bring it to San Diego. Let's bring it to Austin. Let's go to Miami. All of a sudden the country's on this wavelength. Collective consciousness is growing. Why can't this happen in Israel? Why can't this happen in Africa? People are starting to kind of globalize this consciousness. And that to me is where, his kingdom come, his will be done. We can start to see some real shifts occur. And that's what keeps me jumping out of bed in the morning.
Love that. Yeah, I mean, I think I agree with you. Like I've been thinking a lot and sometimes talking a lot about, you mentioned someone taking a big leap and that being courageous. I actually, I agree with you, but of course a big leap is almost always courageous, but I also think small leaps are too. Yeah. Small, maybe not leap is the right word, but certainly small steps in a way in the direction of your fear or in the direction of growth is courageous to me. So like, my wife and I were doing Toastmasters actually just before the pandemic, and, I'd always thought maybe that would be a good thing to try out, and, had a really great experience at the Santa Monica one. And the people that would come in showed so much courage in so many different ways. Like there was a guy who had like a severe stutter, like very severe, and a handicap. And he had to hold a cane when he gave his speech. He was probably his 40s or something. And I saw him progress from like not being able to say a full sentence to giving a speech about how he was about to do the LA Marathon, like walk it. And I was like, I've done marathons and stuff, and the half marathon I did recently, I had a way different perspective than I used to on it. And I was like, if you just show up to do the marathon, even if you don't finish it, you're a hero in my book.
Without question.
Right? It's like the people's stories that run marathons, any number of things that are overcome. Many of them are raising money for great things, but also there are a lot of people that are like they're in their third remission of cancer. They have, they lost a spouse, they lost a kid, they lost a limb. And like you see firefighters where they'll raise money wearing, 50 pounds of gear or more, 80 pounds or whatever. And it's like the heroic thing that I think keeps people stuck, or the version of actually like walking off the plank into the deep end is like, it's understandable why people are scared about that. But the thing I try to encourage people, particularly if they're burnt out, particularly if they don't have any momentum, because we both know momentum is so essential to keep it going, is to count your wins.
Yeah.
And I tell people, because I had to do this for myself, I was like, if you're so burnt out that a win is taking a shower, write that down.
Totally.
Right? Write it down. It doesn't have to be you have some enormous thing that has got to be in the newspaper. It's like,
Right.
did you talk to the cashier today at Starbucks and actually have a connection? Did you give a little bit bigger tip this time than last time?
Right.
Like, those are all wins because you don't know where that goes.
I love starting with what is giving you life and what is taking life from you.
Mm.
And you have to survey the people in your life, the words that you use for yourself. Like, all of those little wins that you just spoke of are triumphant steps when you're just taking one step. And I think, like you said, walking off the plank and looking at the big leap, it's like, no way, I'm not capable of that.
Yeah, take an inventory.
But just, this is giving me life. I'm going to start doing this more.
So, can I share an exercise I came up with?
Of course.
So, following that 18-to-1 kind of journey on my team, that, it was very hard to, I hung on to that business probably a year and a half too long because I was like afraid to fail, or like I just didn't want to.
Right.
Who would want it, right? It's like you're letting people down, people give you money, it sucks. I was the biggest investor in it, you don't want to confront that.
No.
But when I finally faced the music, I read a book called Play, which you mentioned Play, and so maybe we'll come back. We will come back to that. But it was written by Tim Ferriss's assistant, and he got so burnt out in the process of some kind of book launch / like event that he had to quit being Tim Ferriss's longtime assistant, which is like, Tim Ferriss is one of my heroes. So
it's incredible.
So like to quit that job for burnout is like, you must have been in a pretty bad way. So he writes this book about how play, like children play, in these different, I can give you a few different examples. I did basically all of them. Things like improv.
So good.
Instead of grabbing a coffee and sitting down with a new colleague or friend, go to the park and throw a baseball and have a chat there.
So good.
I started playing tennis again. I started playing the sax again.
Let's go.
Yeah,
dude.
like doing some
You
art.
would play the sax.
Yeah, no, I know. Yeah, well, that's one of my dreams. We have like a little neighborhood band.
So awesome,
post
dude.
up every Thursday night, and one of my dreams is to like be able to play with them, because it's like, we sometimes can like lose the forest from the trees, with the way society works and everything's moving faster than ever, and most people seem to have smartphones that have more computing power than NASA did in the 60s. It's pretty insane. So you take that all on board and you're like, I think now you're right. There's a kind of renaissance in many respects. One of them is slowing down and then reacquainting ourselves with what makes us human.
Yes.
Which brings me to another thing I wanted to ask you about. Are you familiar with the human, the longest standing human study that Harvard has done for about 125 years?
I do not know.
Can I share with you? Because I think you'll dig it. It's meaningfully changed my life just knowing about it.
Love the study of humans.
So the study, I don't know the exact start dates, but let's just say the beginning of the 20th century. So sometime in the early 1900s. Harvard kicked off this kind of study that would take Harvard graduates in various cohorts. I don't know the exact frequency, but let's just say 300 Harvard undergrads graduate. We're now going to track them for the entirety of their life until they die. And we're not going to just track them. We're going to interview them. We're going to take their blood samples. We're going to check their VO2 max. We're going to see how much money they made, their title, where they lived, how many kids they had, what their spouse thinks about them.
Wow.
So they have an enormous amount of data. And unlike many of the other books that are out there, like, oh, sleep is the most important thing, and exercise and diet and everything else, this book had one unequivocal takeaway that I really tell everyone about because I think it's that meaningful. But I'm curious if you had to guess. So this is the longest standing longitudinal study. What's the number one most important thing for, another thing they collect, by the way, is self-reported happiness and fulfillment. So it's not just the data, it's also when I'm on my deathbed, what do I say was the most important thing?
Yeah, like qualitative. I mean, from my own experience, it's the relationships.
Yeah.
It's the
Sure you haven't read the book?
No, but it's, I mean,
they say it unequivocally. It's like
inherently
3 pages
true.
in, you're going to hear it for basically every page thereafter. I mean, it's really meaningful. And I think that in the age we're now with social media and everyone, for a time predominantly working remotely, we started treating each other kind of like cogs, or sort of like, and I can't say I'm not guilty of like hustling through a grocery store to just get in and out and like not actually, be present and all that. But that really stuck with me because there's another book written by someone who worked in hospice, and she interviewed people that were also on death row, but maybe not the first part of their story, but certainly the last part. And it said all the same things as the Harvard study, but one extra thing. What do you think that thing was?
Stop and smell the roses.
In a way, I think it's adjacent to what I remember be the third one, which was regret.
Some of the most divine moments in my life are when I slow down, because you never know what people are going through. So including yourself, sometimes you're moving so fast that you can't even really internalize like your emotional state. When you slow down and you have an interaction with somebody, a random interaction where a lady can't reach something and you stop, and then she starts to talk to you about the day that she's had, and one thing leads to another and you're praying for her. Like,
yeah, maybe her dog died or something. It's like actually a really hard day.
There's these moments that we can have as human beings that I think are lost because we're all chasing the next high or the next thing. And that, I mean, the social dilemma, I don't know if you've seen that.
Yeah.
Our neurochemistry has been changed over the last 10 years with social media and with media in general. And so if you don't have good boundary in regards to the amount of content you absorb from this to the amount of content you absorb in real time, and which is why we have such a deeply embedded pillar of real life experiences with IcePass, you'll forget what it is to be a human.
Absolutely.
We are inherently tribe centered, and nothing against technology. I think AI is fantastic. I think all these tools can help us. I read something earlier. It's like AI was created to help us do the dishes and the laundry, not take away our art and our. I'm botching it, but right now we're seeing AI do the art and the this, and we're still doing the laundry and it's like understanding how to differentiate between the tool that this is and not getting used by the tool. We use the tool. And so the inherent need for us to stand firm in what it means to be a human. And like you said, double down on play, double down on what brought you joy when you were 5 years old. And if you haven't taken time to remember what it was like to be 5, that is a beautiful visualization meditation. Sit down and just close your eyes. What was it like to be 5-year-old you? That little you still lives inside you.
The inner child thing, yeah.
And is screaming to, like, please, tap back into me.
Absolutely. I mean, that's, that's why children are so curious. They're so adventurous. They're so kind. They're, conditioning is a powerful force.
There's a scripture that I love. Those who exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exalted.
Love that.
So everybody wants to be the guy until you have to clean up, until you have to close shop, until you have to wash feet. And I think it's really cool to see embodied leadership. And I love the coaching sphere because I'm a coach as well. But when you step into coaching, your student is going to look at you, or your mentee or whoever you are in front of is going to look at you, all the things you're doing.
Oh, of course.
So if you're not embodying the things that you're preaching, you are a fraud.
100%. Which is why a lot of times coaches get hired to help fix culture.
Right.
Because the culture is the product of the leaders, and the leaders are the product a lot of times of the founders.
Right.
And sometimes it ownership changes and new things happen. But the reality is if a company has a healthy culture, almost certainly that came from the people leading it, but that doesn't mean that it was top down. The reason why I knew we were going to have a great conversation, besides the obvious in a way, is that I saw you changing the filters and whatnot on the tubs. And I was like, that's the kind of guy I want to talk to. Because that's what I saw. Like, my dad would spend pretty much every Saturday through my whole life taking care of our property. Like in our house in Connecticut, he enjoyed it, but he would like wash the cars like several times a week, like kind of thing, like take care of everything, do the small things, like tighten the little tiniest screws. Yes. It's kind of like the way Steve Jobs says, like if you take apart an iPhone, I don't know if this is relevant actually, but in a way it is, which is like, he knew that maybe not everyone would see the inside of an iPhone. In fact, you're not really supposed to, but if you did, you would be like, this is Apple.
Yes.
I think that's the way, that you are building your business, because I can tell. Because the thing is that if you then hire someone that aligns with that kind of approach, they then can be a leader that will hire the next person that has more of that. And The trouble is, and I think Bezos talks about this, he has a slightly different take on it, but he talks about not hiring, like only hiring A players. I think he is a little bit more focused on performance. And I think here I'm going to broaden that to include like character, A player character, and then your company's going to be just fine.
Yes. Dr. Peterson says, clean your room first before you try to clean your
12
street.
rules for life.
It's so, and these things are simple, right? But we get so caught up in the busyness that we forget some of the simplest things. But I take great pleasure in the cleanliness of the organization, of every aspect of being a leader, because anything you do is just like everything you do. So like if I'm using the cold tub daily, I want that thing to be clean. If I'm having great conversations with you in the sauna, I want that thing to be fresh. And then it leads into every other aspect. So a lot of people will approach me and they're like, hey, when do I get to lead people who are a part of the team? When do I get to put on an event? And it's like, you walk before you run. So it's just enjoy the little things. And I think everybody has this sense of entitlement, you know, of like, I deserve the promotion. I've been here for 2 months now, look. And I think as like I said, humble yourself and you will be exalted. Like, do the little things with a smile on your face.
That part's huge. When I was in investment banking, I remember I had he wasn't my boss, but he was like a more senior person than me. And he said something about, there's this weird cultural thing that happens in investment banking where they, like a lot of organizations, are really tough in terms of hours and workload and stuff on the youngest. And this guy said something like, you know, people who are abused become abusers or something like that. And it was basically his way of saying he had to do the thing that he's now asking the other like analysts to do that he knows is not particularly fun, but and he's a really, really sweet guy. So don't get me wrong about the message. But the point is that if the culture is one where it's about like, I did that thing, I hated every second of it, I didn't smile along the way, and now I'm going to make you do it too. That's a very different thing than, yeah, I have no problem rolling up my sleeves. Like, I'll help you. Like, I'll take out the trash. I just take out the trash every day in my first startup as a CFO. Like,
yes,
like but that's the kind of thing my dad would do.
Right.
My mom would do it.
You got to
people I admire do that kind of thing. So it's like, but it's also like a small way of contributing, and like, who knows who else on the team sees that and is like, oh, so like when no one's looking, these are the kinds of things we care about. It's not just the dollars and cents or the press release or the whatever.
Right. And not needing to one up the abuser. I think such a beautiful thing of our inherent human desire of finding true north is either continuing cycles or breaking cycles. So you can either say, oh, well, that person did that thing to me, you know, and I even look at the relationship with my own father. Like, he was abusive. I'm about to have a son. I am able to see generations of abuse that stem from an inherent desire to love without knowing how to love. So as a leader of a company, or as a father of my child, or as a husband with my wife, it's like we have these choices to make of continuing cycles that have been shown to us. And I say, well, that happened to me, so I'm going to keep doing it. Or you can deeply, deeply look at, who do I want to be as a leader? So I think instead of moving so fast to get to the next thing, sometimes the most profound experiences in my life are when I'm in stillness. And when I'm looking at, who do I want to be as a leader in this company? Who do I want to be as a husband? Who do I want to be as a father? And these things it's revelation. You start to understand deeply, inherently who you are. You are healed. All the change that you wish to see, you get to be, but you have to take that first step and embody it. And it's not an overnight process, but as you start to do the work more and more, it becomes much more effortless. I enjoy the work. And that's the beauty of the cold plunge is like, there are certain days I show up and I do not want to get into that freezing cold water. But
even you.
The revelation happens when you get into the water.
Yeah.
And it's powerful, man. It's really somatic therapy. You're able to get into the depths of your being and understand the fears and the traumas and the lack that you hold at a cellular level, and you're able to bring it to the surface. And when you step outside of it, it's powerful, man. And it's going to be fun to see more opportunities to kind of usher in this next wave of leadership, of conscious entrepreneurship, and you know, even just being on this conversation and talking to you about all the different ways that we're embodying what it is that we want to see in this world. It's awesome to be kind of just seeing this magnetism that we're creating, to be able to even be sitting here in this moment having this conversation is empowering.
Yeah, no, I'm right with you, and it's been so wonderful. Just like I'm meeting people, like I'm texting more people these days than I ever have in my life. I have like 100 and something unread texts. I just like anyone I think of, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna text them. And sometimes
You're like, I'm going to get back to you, I promise.
The thing is, you know what? It connects because it's like, instead of waiting for the text to come your way, send the text to someone.
For sure.
Take the lead. Hop on the podcast.
Right.
If you enjoyed, hearing Kyle, send him a note.
Right.
I've done that, and some of the times I've done that have led to my best friends.
Without question.
People listening.
Come by and visit the water hole.
Actually. This guy called Ben, I did that. I heard him on a podcast. I was like, we got to connect. And then we hit it off. So would love to learn about maybe some role models.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
or heroes, or however you want to define it.
I've been talking spirit a lot. Obviously, Jesus, he's an embodiment of what I believe is living a life of service, not when it's convenient, but actually living a life of service. Many of his parables that he spoke, just you meditate on New Testament, and his life blows my mind. We could dive into that. That's its own podcast. We could hop on the Fearless Shepherds.
Yeah, we'll do a spiritual one at one point, because I actually love that stuff.
Yeah.
Psychedelics showed me a lot of that, and it's actually kind of fun.
Big time.
And not just fun, it's very, very interesting. And some of the lessons I learned, I think I'm also going to make like an animated thing, because they're really cool.
That's really cool to be able to make an animation of
Organized. I've got a friend who's like kind of a like drawing type. That is
somebody that lived in my time, Kobe Jellybean Bryant. Kobe, I grew up watching him play from the time he was drafted out of Lower Merion High, and to come from high school into the pros, wanting to be like Michael Jordan, the greatest to ever do it, and to be a dog at his neck, not afraid of literally a walking prophet. This guy ran the NBA, and he was like in his ear saying, I'm better than you. I'm going to be better than you. And like that type of kind of chip on his shoulder was so inspiring for me as this young kid to see like, yo, this guy has nothing to lose but everything to gain, and he's showing up like demanding respect. But it wasn't, he was like posturing. He was the first in the gym, and he was last to leave. And he would like be in practice like at people's throat, and it was just this tenacity that I was just so inspired by. And the whole legacy of him and Shaq, and then the breakup, and just kind of the way that he and his own wife went through a tumultuous time when he had the cheating scenario and this and that. But he always like came back to this ownership of taking full ownership. When he tore his Achilles, he humbly like walked to the free throw line, hit both those free throws, and walked off with a torn Achilles. People are like, let me help you. He's like, no. And just this like this, he was like the kind of the hero of, I think, so many people's lives, of like what it means to be a true leader, what it means to be a true champion, and what it means to take no excuses. And then his death was like a really, it showed me how impermanent life is, and how you could take things for granted, and what he was starting to do with his daughters, and kind of culture, and what it means to be an entrepreneur after the NBA. And he was changing so many people's lives. And I think when he died, it was just this eye-opening experience for me to like really cherish those types of people in your life. So big shout out to Kobe and the work he did. And my grandmother, Grandma Susan, if you're watching, I love you. She's been someone who, anytime I've drifted in my life, she's kind of grabbed me by the reins and kind of pulled me back in. And I think so much of family is about not only just saying the comfortable things and like just, the people pleaser type. You don't want to like ruffle anybody's feathers. She's always been someone who has shown me true north, and she's kind of asked those deep questions that like are tough. Like, what are you doing with your life? What do you want to be? Who are you? Who does God look at you and say you are? And then the questions with my father, when my father and I were going through some tough times of just, having those uncomfortable conversations around why people are abusive, what he had to go through in order to come to the grips of understanding what abandonment felt like for him as a young boy, and his dad not wanting to be in his life. And that's a whole nother podcast episode, but it's
the second and third. Yeah.
Having people in your life, in your corner, don't take it for granted. Like if you have somebody who checks in with you regularly, like foster that, and then be that person. I think it's taught me a lot having those types of people in my corner, to then not be so busy that I can't check in with people. And I'm in a program right now. Big shout out to BC Cerna, but he's a purpose coach, and he has a mastermind called Pursuing Purpose. And I'm a mentor in his mastermind, and it's the second go round. the aspect of holding space. We have these small group calls where we get onto the call, and he has this brilliant curriculum that he's put together. But the first week is if you really knew me. So if you really knew me, you would know that, and boom, you just open up your closet.
Wow.
And a lot of these people on these calls, they haven't said that to their family. So then for me as a mentor to be holding this sacred space and help them to feel safe, to be heard, seen, understood. BC, big shout out. He does such a good job of helping people feel that it's our passion that connects us. It's our pain that bonds us.
Mm-hmm.
And he's just opened my eyes to what servant kingdom looks like and what it truly means to be a humble servant and to serve from heart-led leadership. And yeah, I mean, I could go on. There's so many people that have impacted me. And just, stepping into leadership in my own right. Some of those little conversations that I have when somebody opens their heart to me and is like, you don't know what this community has done for me. Being in a place of loneliness, a place of depression, a place where I thought I was going to take my own life. And I have these conversations all the time.
So I actually want to, I'm glad you brought that up because I wanted to make sure we save a few minutes to maybe talk about that, because I would say without exception, there's no exception. Everyone I've met that have been a part of your IcePass community, are incredible people, and many of them speak to their experience. Sometimes many times for the first time, having cold therapy and also contrast hot therapy be not just meaningful but life-changing.
Yes.
I met someone who told me he was the number one trafficker of ecstasy in the country at some point, and he got out of prison after serving a lot of time.
I know exactly who you're talking about.
And he's going to be. I think he said he would be happy to be on the show. So
it's incredible.
He can tell his story, but he talked about, it was like this thing where I was talking to these guys, and actually that was the day I met you.
Yeah.
If you remember, I was in the ice bath, and we were chatting about how cold it is or whatever. And this guy's like, that ice bath, like, really, in a way, saved my life. He's like, and I was like, well, say more. And he's like, well, I'm normally pretty angry. He's like, I'm normally pretty angry. I'm not the best boss, not always the best husband, and sometimes not the best father. But this ice bath, like taking these ice baths, has been game changer, because I'm happier, I'm more grounded, I'm more like present, and then he's like, but if you want to hear a really amazing story, he's like, talk to this guy, and then that was
that's when we met.
Yeah, and then but no, well, you were the third.
Yeah.
So then he said, you got to meet him, and then I turn around, Kyle's like changing the filters or whatever in the bath, and I was like, this is nuts. And mind you, I had just met Leo maybe 2 nights before.
Right.
Who was on his bath. So,
well, from a physiological level, you are going into vasoconstriction. So your entire world is constricting around you. You go into freezing cold water, your physiological response is to protect your internal organs. So your extremities don't exist to your body anymore. Everything starts to close in. And to me, that is death. Everything is closing in. Things slow down. Sympathetic response, fight or flight, you're in survival. But then all of a sudden, the first 30 seconds, your body's racing, mind's racing, and then you get to this point where you're like at peace. And if you talk to a lot of people near-death experience, they're like, I came to this point where I was just at peace. And so the cold plunge is this opportunity to feel everything constrict around you. And then going out of the plunge and feeling everything open up. It's like from death to life. And then when you're doing the back and forth between hyperconstriction to hyperdilation in the hot with the sauna, you start to feel every bodily system, your endocrine system, and the dopamine and the serotonin and the endorphins. And when you're doing it in community, the oxytocin, these things are pumping. You feel this life force energy being promoted and absorbed in your bloodstream. So your endocrine system's pumping. Your lymphatic system and all this fluid that moves to help to kind of like detoxify your inner being, that's helping and moving in ways that it maybe wasn't and maybe is blocked. Then you think of your cardiovascular. Most deaths in the United States stem from cardiovascular disease. So you're helping with circulation, you're helping with oxygenation of your cells, but then from a mental standpoint, I look at it as, what are the limits, the fears, the doubts, the insecurities, the limits, really? Before I get into the tub, I got to get to that thing. Maybe I don't do it today. Things come up.
Yeah.
And so to be able to face that fear and do that thing and come out the other side with this resiliency on top of all the physiological benefit, and then the spiritual aspect of it, you're in this place of stillness, in which case you're able to listen. We're always so damn busy. For me, I look at that time as a very sacred space where I'm able to just do nothing. We live in a hyper-masculine society where it's do, next up, constantly more. It is a time where you can completely receive. And you're just like, whatever I want to receive right now, I don't know what it is. Sometimes I go into it and I'm like, still so busy. I don't know what the heck I'm going to get. But after, exactly what I was supposed to receive has been given to me. Wow. And then I look at the imagery of fire, and human beings have gathered around fire ever since the beginning. Fire is such a beautiful image of like these things that we're storing in our cells. When you go into the sauna, especially the style of sauna that we have the traditional sauna, you're going to sweat. There's going to come that point where your heart rate's increasing and you want to get out. And you have this moment where you can bunker down and you can tell yourself, I'm going to throw something into the fire. So whatever's telling me that I'm not enough or I can't do it or I need to get out, no, I'm going to bunker down and I'm going to realize that I am capable. And when you do that, you're building new neurological connections, and it is powerful. I've seen people go through complete transformation. I'll guide them through a 10-minute, 15-minute session, and they'll come out sobbing, saying, I am never going to be able to look at the relationship I had with my, different things come forward. It's somatic therapy. So it's like, to me, every time I'm doing it, I'm becoming a better version of myself. I'm able to like double down on these things that have changed my life. And then I'm able to see it face to face. I've guided thousands of people through this experience. And every single time, I'm sometimes taken back by like, I'm literally changing people's lives every single day. I joke I'm baptizing people every day. Yeah, we have it in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. But
maybe your baby's
that'll be a little side quest. But it truly is fascinating to me how much cleansing comes from the water and how much healing comes from the fire. And when you blend those two things together, it's elemental. It's like, and Ariane was joking, he was going to call the company Elemental, but I like IcePass because it's kind of like the accessibility of, ClassPass, but it's something that shouldn't be for the wealthy. Health is wealth, but it shouldn't be for the wealthy. Shout out Ariane, that was a really good catchphrase. We have an ambassador program that's now 40 plus people who have approached us, and it takes vulnerability to say, hey, right now I'm tight financially, but what you're doing I want to be a part of. So instead of just giving things away, what I'm learning from service is like, I'll just give this membership to you. No, we ask you to help us on the mission. So I can't be the only one that's maintaining the spaces. I can't be the only one that's setting up and breaking down our events. I can't be the only one in the streets selling our membership. I'm going to equip you with the tools to help us to build this mission, and you will be given the service 7 days a week. And we ask 3 hours a week. So people can come in and feel a part of something far greater than me or you, and they're equipping themselves with the tools of thinking and acting like an owner. And that's what really lights me up is like, okay, so now I get to have these conversations with our ambassadors of like, what's your skill? What's your gift? What do you want to create? And so these little things that are so much bigger than IcePass, but is a central point of IcePass. And so I will do many more things in my life, but IcePass has been this springboard for me to see what leadership looks like. And I love the silent leadership because it's not about me, but I get to embody the brand and showcase what leadership looks like. And people just come and they're starting to want to see this thing grow far greater than the original vision was.
Kyle, this has been a ton of fun. We covered a lot of ground on a lot of things, and I think I really enjoyed the conversation. I'm sure a lot of people will find hearing from you, hearing your story, and your not just inspiration, but your expertise in terms of some of these disciplines that have gotten to you where you are now in your life, where you're paying it forward and bringing creating community out of a business, which is a rare thing and difficult thing, and yet it's extremely powerful.
Definitely.
So I want to thank you for your time. But before I let you jump, how can people get in contact with you?
Supporting local is important. So if you're in West LA, check out IcePass, Instagram, IcePass_LA. My handle is Spirit Movement 3. I am a certified life coach, personal trainer, yoga teacher. I want to empower you towards what health means. So if you're ever in LA and you want to connect, I'd be happy to walk you through what those practices have looked like in my life and what they can look like in yours. Come visit us at Vintage LA, church in Santa Monica. It is an incredible place where both my wife and I were baptized. And The Fearless Shepherds is a podcast that I started talking about faith, talking about who Jesus was, talking about true north and divine masculinity, and kind of healing this toxic masculinity that we've seen kind of halt true family and true abundance, which to me is purpose. And I think my wife and I are really excited about hosting more Bible studies and hosting more young adults stepping into parenthood. And so, yeah, if you're in LA and you want to connect, Kyle Cassidy, reach out to me on Instagram, or kyle@icepass.la on the email domain. And yeah, I look forward to continuing to get to know you and see this podcast thrive and all of your business endeavors thrive. I'll be praying for you and your wife to eventually bring a little playmate for my son into the world.
Absolutely.
Just more family, more community. It's what we need in this world. You are the change that this world so desperately needs. Really embody that, and I look forward to meeting you soon.
Amazing. Kyle, thank you so much for joining Quiet Leaders Podcast.
Patrick, it was a pleasure.